This episode's title is A Much Needed Talk, and I can't really think of a good joke to start this episode. Will you see, Team Ranger, when a girl and a guy really love each other? Nah, it's just not working, is it? Hey, everybody out there in YouTube land. Jake of the OneManBand is back again, and welcome to another RWBY episodic review. This time, we're taking a look at Episode 8 of Volume 4, A Much Needed Talk. And what a much needed talk it is. The two perspectives that we have in this volume with Team Ranger and Blake, both of them approach much needed talks with the appropriate characters of each story. And I love it. I love this episode. It has a lot of talking. It does have a lot of exposition and world building in it, but the emotion that's put into some of the scenes is really, really good. So let's jump right in. So we start off the episode with Team Ranger and roughly about 5 minutes of exposition. Crow spills the beans about all that's been going on to Team Ranger, and quite literally, when I watched this episode for the first time and this part of the scene was going, I was literally going, exposition, exposition, all this stuff we already know. I mean, yes, Team Ranger doesn't know what's going on with Salem and the Maidens and the Secret War and Ozpin's Brotherhood of the Seasonal Maidens. They didn't know about that, so they did have to learn. And it's pretty much just being reapproached now due to the fact that it hasn't really been talked about all that much in the series since really Volume 3. So we're once again being reminded of the Seasonal Maiden's existence, Salem being out there, her plan to acquire all the Maiden's powers, and how Crow knew pretty much all that was going on in the background during Volume 3. Crow actually dropped some pretty well-deserved information, because we have seen the extent of the Maiden's power. We know how powerful they are. And so a lot of people were wondering, well, how did Amber get taken out so easily? Sure, she was outnumbered 3-1, but you would think that she would at least, have so much power that she'd be able to take on 3 people. Crow explains that Amber was a young and inexperienced maiden, so maybe she was just out of one of the academies and maybe had just gotten her maiden powers. She didn't have a full grasp on them yet, and that's how she was so easily overpowered and eventually taken out. So I, for one, was glad that we got this information out of Crow. Another big thing that happens in this part is Jean is finally, it's explained to him why Pyrrha did what she did and pretty much what led to her death. And, well, he isn't really happy about what has happened. Now, a lot of people out there on the internet have been, attacking Crow and Ozpin and all those characters, stating that, oh, they didn't give Pyrrha a choice, they forced her into becoming a maiden and that ended up killing her. When you're totally missing, did you even watch Volume 3? Pyrrha was not forced into anything. Ozpin saw Pyrrha as the best candidate to becoming the Fall Maiden, but did he force it upon her? No. He pretty much told her the information and took her down to the vault to introduce her to Amber and pretty much tell her what exactly all is going on. He even pretty much gave her every single reason not to do it. Transferring of the soul could be painful, you could lose yourself, we don't know what's going to happen to you, it's going to be dangerous. Even when they were actually going to do the soul transference at the end of Volume 3, Ozpin did not start the process until Pyrrha said it to him that she wanted to do it. He gave her so many opportunities to step away or not to do it. He didn't ask for a decision right then and there, when he first spilled the beans to her. He let her think about it. He said, wait till the end of the Vital Tournament. Because, you know, a lot of stuff was already going through her head then. And although she kept it all into herself, she tried her best to sort of confide in Jean. If anything, the thing that got Pyrrha to dead was her believing in destiny. She believed that it was her destiny to protect the world and be the best huntsman she can be. And if becoming a seasonal maiden was the step that she had to take to do that, she was willing to do it. Just let it be known, my heater was still on, so if you were hearing it in the background, I apologize. So, Jean being upset at Crow and Ozpin and all of them, I'll say it like this. On an emotional level, he has every right to be mad because he finally gets a for sure reason why Pyrrha was doing what she was doing, and those old wounds have now just been reopened to him. But it's not right for Jean to lash out at Crow and Ozpin, and it's not right for the fandom to be doing it either, because they were just trying to save a life and save power from getting into the enemy's hands. They didn't force it on Pyrrha. Pyrrha wanted it to happen. And that's what Crow is explaining to Jean when, you know, Jean's just being all pissy. In this episode, Jean has a bit of an attitude on him, and I'm not sure I like it. I prefer Jean when he's the goofy, awesome Jean. I don't like angsty Jean. Bring back old Jean. So Jean, as well as the rest of Team Ranger, really wants to know what's going on with Crow. Why didn't he just travel with them? Jean suggests that he was using them as bait. Now, that isn't necessarily what Crow was doing. If Crow had any idea that they were being followed, maybe that would have been a good opportunity to bring out the attacker, but he never wanted to put Team Ranger in danger. We have seen him clear out Grimm that are open to attacking Team Ranger. So we know that he's there to protect them and to look after them. He isn't necessarily using them as bait. He is only trying to help them on their journey. But that still brings up the question, why didn't he just travel with them? But Crow takes this opportunity to explain to them what's going on in a more deeper form. We have to go way, way back. Crow talks about a great story from way back then. Now, we do know that religion exists in the world of Remnant, but according to Crow and Ozpin, Remnant's been around for a very long time. So long that dozens of gods have been created. But, in Ozpin's opinion, there were originally two. There were two brother gods, the older being the god of light and the younger being the god of darkness. And, well, they were in a constant struggle with each other. The god of light strove to create life and prosperity, while the god of darkness wanted to destroy life and just, like, bring forth famine, fire, flames, all the stuff that destroys life. But, as we know, life is pretty tenacious, and it always came back. Now, in this tale, it states that both these gods created things on Remnant, but it never states that they actually created Remnant. So, did they actually create the planet, or is the planet already here and they just used it as their canvas? That's a real question that we gotta bring into this sort of situation. If the planet itself wasn't built by these two gods, then who built the planet? But I think that's a theory and a topic for another day. We also learn that it was the younger brother, the god of darkness, that created the creatures of Grimm. They would forever be on the world of Remnant and seek to destroy life. Now, it is kind of weird because the Grimm were first created to destroy life and, you know, just all of that on the planet of Remnant. And, well, we don't necessarily see them attacking trees, grass. They only really attack animals if they feel like it. The only thing they feel privy to attacking is humanity and humanity's creations. But the god of light, the older brother, had had enough of his little brother's shit. So instead of destroying his little brother, they decided that they would make one last thing. Both of them would pour their resources and create one last creation. And this creation was indeed humanity. Humanity was born from the dust on Remnant and were formed into the humanoids that we know today. Now, I know in the story it isn't stated that Crow doesn't say that, well, the gods used dust to create humanity, but if we take the origin story from the beginning of the show and mix it with this one, you can pretty much assume that the gods used dust to create humanity. Once again, making a form of bridge to Christianity's birth of mankind, how Adam was created from the dust of the earth. And with the birth of humanity, they were gifted 4 gifts. They were given 4 gifts in their free will. They had the ability to create, destroy, they had knowledge, and free will. That was their 4 gifts that were given to them from both of the gods. Each god, I would think, gifting 2 of the appropriate 4 factors. Now, another grievance that really just got to me with the fans reacting to this episode and this story, they were just like, oh, light versus dark, how cliche! How cliche for this to happen! I can't believe this story is so cliche now. This origin story of mankind with light versus darkness. Now, is the whole trope of good versus evil, light versus dark overdone? Yes. But it works. You see, one of the driving points of creating a story is creating relatability. The people who are experiencing the story want to be able to relate with what's going on with the story. And you see, us right now in the real world, every single day, even if you choose to deny it, you know deep down that there is a struggle between good and evil. Good and bad, you know, light versus darkness. We know that there's a contrast there, and there is, you know, a feud between the two. Good doesn't like evil, and evil doesn't like good. So we experience that in real life, and that's why it has bled into so many stories and throughout the ages, is because we can relate to it and it works. We will never get tired of the good old-fashioned good versus evil story. Now, yes, you can have times where, well, good can sometimes be evil and good can always sometimes be bad. We have seen that so many times throughout RWBY. We've seen people who are supposed to be good ending up being bad or doing bad things, while we have also seen bad people end up doing good things. We know that there is good and bad, and sometimes they can interchange with one another, but that is the innate nature of humanity, because they were birthed from both light and dark. And what Pyrrha says in Volume 1, the Grimm are the dark, and we are the light. But Jean then says, that's why we fight them. But Pyrrha says, no, it's not about fighting, it's about knowing and finding the balance within yourself, the balance between light and dark. And you see, the gods, these 2 god brothers, one of them was light and one of them was dark. So they're always going to be fighting one another. But us, as humans, as humanity, have the capacity to be either dark or light. So as much as it feels like a cliche story, it's just the same story that's been told over and over and over again. And it's the story that we love. The story of humanity and the story of humanity struggling and finding where it belongs in the spectrum of good versus evil. So, I'm really sorry I got deeply philosophical with you, but I hope that you enjoyed that segment. Let's get back to the actual episode, shall we? Now, once again, the 4 gifts given to mankind, knowledge, creation, destruction, and free will, they weren't just inside every single human being. There was also a physical representation of each one left on the world of Remnant. Crow stated that these relics, hold on to that, were left behind when the gods abandoned Remnant. Now that's kind of a harsh word to use, abandoned. That just means the gods left because they were all like, I've had enough of this crap, I'm out. They didn't even want to watch over their creation, see what they were going to do. I mean, maybe there was a big poker game in the sky that they just needed to get to. But anyway, these 4 items, these 4 representations of mankind's gifts became the relics. Now we know that the relics are something that Salem is looking for. Salem knows that a relic is at Beacon Academy, or at least was at Beacon Academy. We don't know what shape the relic takes, how small it is, how big it is, even if it's heavy. We don't even know if it's a, like a thing you can hold. Who knows? Maybe it's some sort of like swirly mist energy thing. That's still a physical form, kinda? But Ozpin's predecessor, the one who first created the Huntsman Academies, built the academies pretty much on top of each of these relics, so that not only could they fall into the wrong hands, they would remain hidden, and they would constantly be surrounded by the best warriors of Remnant. Because the concept of using these relics may have been what was going on during the Great War. We have to remember, the 4 kingdoms were separated into 2 factions. One of those factions could have been using the God of Light's relics, while the other 2 could have been using the God of Darkness's relics. So the relics were all but forgotten. They were buried under the academies so that humanity couldn't abuse their power to start wars or gain power. And note that he says Ozpin's predecessor. So I'm pretty sure before Ozpin was Ozpin, the Oz semblance was attached to this gentleman. And once that gentleman died, the Oz semblance was passed on to Ozpin, and now it's passed on to Oscar. So now that the origin of mankind has been told to Team Ranger and the relics have finally been explained, we know that Salem wants them. Not only does she want the Seasonal Maiden's powers, but she wants these relics. Now, I believe that her gaining the relics is her end game, but gaining the Seasonal Maiden's power will help get to that end game. Because Crow explains that if you control these 4 relics, you control the world. You control everything. You can do pretty much whatever the F you want. So, things are looking kinda bleak for our heroes right now. Speaking of bleak, we now have a Blake part! I was just kidding. This part isn't really all that bleak. It's actually quite touching, and I actually really love this segment with Blake. We start off with Blake standing on a balcony outside her father's study and is approached by her mother. Now, by the way Blake is acting, she wants to approach her father, but she's still nervous. She's scared to approach him. And we can tell this by when she has the tea set with her, she's shaking at the concept of going into her father's study and actually talking with him. I don't think Blake is some sort of puma cat. I think she's a scaredy cat. Now, before Blake goes in to see her father, her mother talks about how she wants to hear more about the adventures of Team RWBY, because she had been talking with Sun about it. Now, the big concept that I'm looking at right here is that Kali now knows how, comfortable and how just happy Blake was with her team. So it's once again bringing up the concept, why did Blake leave? Why did she do all this stuff? And if you want my reasons why she left her team, I have a theory, but pretty much to just sum it up right here, it's she left her team so they wouldn't get hurt by Blake's past, essentially. Which, although she was doing it out of goodness and out of trying to protect them, still abandoning your friends is just, it just doesn't sit right with me. I see your logic, Blake, but I don't have to like it. So Blake finally goes in to see her father, and by the way they act around each other, automatically, he automatically puts sugar in her tea, does all this stuff. It shows that they're just awkward around one another. Blake even forgets to cool her tea before taking a drink. You can tell that she's nervous. And another thing, when Gira pours that first cup of tea, is that some sort of magical tea kettle? Because he don't even tip it up, and it just goes, bleh, into the tea, out of the kettle and into the cup. I mean, if that's actually doing, that might actually be something really cool. And continuing in the awkwardness of this situation, the small talk that they engage in is still just kind of awkward, but in a good way. It's a father talking to his teenage daughter, who's pretty much an adult at this point. After not seeing her for so many years, he talks about how her outfit just seems revealing, and, is she cold up there in Vale? Maybe she needs more armor to protect her. He's just trying to make small talk while also, just trying to figure out what's with her. How is Blake today? Now, I think Gira brings up the whole armor thing because he wants his daughter to be protected. And maybe he was a big armored guy when he was actually a fighter. Who knows? But when things just get so awkward, it's Gira who says that he's sorry. And this is what tips Blake over the edge. She doesn't understand why he's sorry. Why is he so forgiving with her? And this is when we get it, my friends. This is when we finally get the Blake scene that I have been waiting for ever since the beginning of this volume. We see Blake breaking down and opening herself to someone. Not to Sun, not to Yang, not to Ruby, not to Weiss, but to her father. The one that she wronged all those years ago. Now, it may be just because this is pretty much confirming my theory, but she talks about how she shouted at him and her mother. She called them cowards, and she pretty much ran away from home when he stepped down from the White Fang. And I was just like, yes, Blake, yes, let your emotions run. This is working. This is what we need from you. You need to open up. You need to talk to people. You need to open up to people so they understand what you're going through, and so they can help you get better. And I was just so happy that she was opening up to her father. I mean, it may just be because, a father and a daughter talking to one another is just so precious to me, but oh my gosh, this is what I was waiting for. Now, Gira talks about how he never doubted Blake for a second, and he never thought that she would go down the dark path. And even though she confesses that she did, he tells her that she was still able to pull herself out, and that takes true strength. This is a father, telling his daughter that everything's gonna be all right, even though you did bad, even though you went down this dark path, even though you may have done things that you might regret now. It's okay, because me and your mother, we still love you. It doesn't matter what you've done. We're still here for you. And I was just so happy because the thing is, Blake left her team, and they were pretty much her family to her. And her abandoning her team, just think how painful that must have been, because it might have reminded her of abandoning her family like that. And that's why I think she decided to finally go back home after she left Team RWBY, instead of taking the fight to the White Fang or just being a loner from then on. She then knew that she had to at least make recompense with one of these groups, or else she wouldn't be able to live with herself anymore. And one of the most beautiful parts of this scene is something my girlfriend pointed out to me. As they're talking, you can hear a slowed down piano version of All Our Days, and I love that song so much, and it was just so perfect here. This is one of those scenes that everything was just so right, so great, so beautiful, that I just felt overwhelmed with emotion. I almost started crying near the end. Now, as much as the scene is touching, it does have a good comedy punchline. Now, I know a lot of people hate this part of the episode, but I think even though it broke up this good scene and it broke up the exposition that I wanted to hear, the comedic timing of it was great. Sun ends up falling through a door and is just like, oh, I messed up this tender moment, I'm sorry. Now, is it terrible that he broke up this nice moment? Yes. It's terrible that he broke up this moment. I wish that he hadn't. Now, the big thing is that he didn't mean to break up this moment. He was looking for Blake to tell her something. Now, they were talking pretty quietly in this room, so all we know, Blake might have heard them and maybe put his ear to the door and then it just collapsed in on itself. So I think the real person to blame here is the damn carpenters that made this house. I mean, he was just leaning on the wall and it collapses? Come on! It's gotta be structurally sound, right? But before we get into the next Blake part of this episode, we transition back to Team Ranger. And Team Ranger is asking, okay, so Salem is out there. These relics exist. The seasonal maidens exist. Why doesn't the world know? And once again, we're kind of given exposition, all this stuff we already know. Because it's like the world cannot go into a panic. If they found out, oh, these two gods created man, these two gods created 4 relics that wield unmeasurable power. These, they're seasonal maidens that can use magic without using dust. There's all this stuff out there. They would freak out. They'd be all like, my whole life is a lie. And there would be panic in the streets, a lot of people rioting, and that's the trouble with the world of Remnant. They're kept in the dark by those who know this information because of the Grimm. The Grimm are drawn to negative emotion. And we know, especially from Volume 3, if a panic arises, we all know what that leads to. The Grimm attacking. So the world is held hostage by the Grimm, and that gives Salem the advantage that she needs. She's able to do what she needs to do in the shadows. Sowing seeds of chaos, doing all this stuff while still, gaining what she needs to do. And if the information did get out, there would be another great war, and our heroes would have to fight in it. Now, do I think eventually a great war is going to happen in the series? Yes. But does it need to happen now? No. The world needs to recover from the fall of Beacon right now, and our heroes need to actually get somewhere. They've been on the road for like a freaking year at this point. Now, one of the big things that really caught my eye is when Crow is talking about Salem, he looks up and gestures to the moon, almost as if Salem is the one responsible for what happened to the moon. Now, that's always been a question on our minds ever since Volume 1, is what happened to the moon, how did it get that way, and, all that kind of stuff. I'm just hoping that eventually we get an explanation for it. And now we finally get the explanation on why Crow didn't travel with them and why he is always alone. It's due to his semblance. Now, Crow's semblance isn't like others. It's always present and kind of always happening around him. Crows, according to old superstition, brought bad luck. And that's exactly what Crow does. He brings misfortune to those around him. Kind of a sucky semblance. Now, it is useful in a fight. He's able to use this as long as he's in close proximity with whoever he's fighting. His semblance is affecting them. So he is causing misfortune for his opponents, making it easier for him to win. But if he's fighting with allies, if he is, with friends or with family, he's gonna cause misfortune for them. And this is why Crow didn't want Team Ranger to help him with fighting Tyrion. And this is probably why he does nothing but solo missions now. Because he doesn't want to hurt his partner or whatever team goes out with him. Now, if he does cause misfortune for those around him, is it possible that his misfortune semblance may have enacted Summer Rose's death? Maybe they went out on a mission together and his misfortune semblance caused her to die? Plot twist. Now, something I really want to talk about is that we saw evidence of his misfortune semblance back in Volume 3. When he fought Winter, he was just doing it to mess with her and all that stuff. And his semblance eventually did cause her misfortune. It caused her to be caught by her commanding officer, General Ironwood, and getting reprimanded for it. That is optimum misfortune for a soldier as herself. Not really important to the plot, but I thought it was really cool to bring up. So now that we know about Crow's semblance, as he's about to go off on a walk, it seems as if Raven herself appears to see if what he's doing, how's he doing, and maybe, just maybe, seeing if he's going to talk about her. Because as she appears, he's asked if he wants to tell them anything else, and he just replies, "Not tonight." He still has more information, but once again, information that Team Ranger doesn't necessarily need to know right now. Raven is kind of need to know. Doesn't really need to know. So now we transition back to Blake and Sun. Now, you know how I was talking about how I really liked Blake in this episode because she was like, she was letting her emotions pour out. She was talking to her dad, and it was such a touching moment. I was so happy. This next scene just kills it. Okay, so I know that this also caused a lot of controversy in the fandom, but okay. Sun interrupted a tender moment. Yes. Did he do it on purpose? No. Was it still something bad? Yes. Does he deserve what he really gets? No. Okay, so Blake is pretty much reprimanding Sun for what he's done, calling out what he did wrong. She slaps him once, okay? I could understand one slap. One slap because emotions were high and it was just out of the blue. She just like, why did you do that? No. I have good character development going on. I could understand that. One slap, fine. But then she slaps him again. She gives him 2 slaps, and I'm just like, what the hell, Blake? It's not like he like barged in when you were changing or taking a shit or anything. He was just there. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And once again, he wasn't trying to do anything malicious. He was trying to find her to tell her information about White Fang activity. There's some bad stuff going on. You know, and Blake just like, I don't want to hear it. I'm mad at you, and I didn't come here to fight the White Fang. I came here to see my family and rest. And you see, here's the thing that also gets me mad at this scene. So, she finally tells him that I came to Menagerie not to fight the White Fang, but to see my family and to rest. Okay. Why didn't you tell him that back in episode 3? When Sun makes the assumption that she was going to, one woman fight army against a White Fang, yeah, totally rock out, yeah. When he does that, she doesn't correct him. She's just like, you don't understand. And then she gets all mopey. And she doesn't tell him. Even when they arrive in Menagerie, Sun doesn't really still know what's going on. She never tells him, oh, you see that house down there? Yeah, that's where my, he does know that she has a house there. But for all he knows, it could just be a house, that she owns. She may just have a house somehow, maybe an apartment. But she never says to Sun, until this moment, hey, look, I'm coming to Menagerie because, I want to see my family, I want to put some things right, and I just really need to rest, okay? She doesn't ever say that. If she would have said that at the very beginning, instead of being all angsty and mad, grumpy cat, then Sun would have understood. If she would have just come out and say, hey, look, Sun, heart to heart, look, you followed me, and I'm annoyed by that. But I'm not taking my fight to the White Fang. I'm just going to Menagerie to see my folks and rest up a bit. How do you think he would have reacted? You think he would have just been like, nah, there's no way you're gonna do that. You're gonna go fight the White Fang. No, Sun is intelligent. He would have been like, okay, I understand. I understand. You need some rest. You need to do all of that. Look, do you mind if I go with you just to make sure you're okay? Maybe to meet your folks? You know, that would have been fine. He would have understood, but she never told him. And you see, a lot of people may argue that like, oh, well, he was bringing her information about the White Fang when she didn't want to hear anything about the White Fang. True, she didn't want to hear anything about the White Fang, but he brings up a very important thing. Kali Belladonna stated that White Fang members don't wear their masks while on Menagerie, because there's really no reason to. It's nothing but faunus. But Sun saw a masked White Fang in the marketplace. He even took a picture. So he has proof, and he's trying to tell Blake, look, something fishy is going on. There's some White Fang out there that, you know, isn't on the up and up. Maybe we should be, you know, on our toes. You know, those White Fang goons came here a few days ago, you know, asking questions. You know, maybe we should be on our guard. So he was about to show her the picture, to show her proof, to just be like, hey, maybe we should just watch out. Maybe we should, you know, try to fix this. Maybe we should talk to your dad because he, you know, knows some White Fang people. But she throws his freaking scroll. Now that was like the killing blow for me. I was like, really? Blake, you're that mad that he's just trying to show you something and you flat out take his scroll and throw it into the jungle? Okay, think of it this way. Scrolls are important. They hold all your information. They can hold money. They're pretty much like the smartphones of the world of Remnant. If your friend was trying to show you a funny cat picture or a cat video, but you just weren't in the right mood, would you take their phone and throw it away? No, you would be considered a Class A bastard if you did that. You would just say, look, I don't want to look at it, just, I need some time. You know, Blake, you got to learn to listen to people. Even though your emotions were high, and he did goof up, yes, he didn't deserve 2 slaps, and he didn't deserve his phone to be thrown. And another thing people may be arguing this whole scene with is that Sun, oh, well, she didn't want to hear anything about the White Fang. Why are you even pushing this on her? Let's once again put it into a real-life scenario. Say that 2 African Americans are hanging out, and one of them is like, when I was in town, you know, buying groceries, I saw a freaking Klan member in full garb at the grocery store. I saw a KKK member at the grocery store, completely decked out in white with the hood and whatever. You know, they don't even have to be African Americans. If it's anyone, they would have been like, whoa, show me. You took a picture, right? He'd be like, yeah, look at the picture. You see, when you put it in a real life scenario, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to grab the phone and throw it. Blake, why? I was starting to like you again. And so another thing that I want to bring up is that me and my girlfriend were talking about this, just talking about this scene in general, and we came to the conclusion that it's pretty much been confirmed that the relationship between Adam and Blake was at one point abusive. And you see, when a person exits an abusive relationship and enters a new one, there's a high probability that they will end up being abusive to their new partner. So that's, now, it probably has nothing to do with Adam, but she's still abusing Sun. She smacked him 3 times. 3 times in this volume, and thrown his personal property. I'm not even gonna mention the amount of times that she could have told him what she was trying to do, but didn't. I'm not gonna count it, no. The bottom line is, was Blake in the right to do those things? No. Was Sun in the right to break up her tender moment with her father? No. But did he deserve to be slapped and have his phone thrown and ignored when he was only trying to help her? No. God. I need to breathe. So, after that whole fiasco, after she's thrown the phone, we hear a grunt out there in the jungle. And we see that there is a spy Faunus White Fang ninja out in the trees spying on the Belladonna residence. And she now has Sun's phone. She has the proof that there was a White Fang member with a mask on Menagerie. You know, if they took that to the authorities, White Fang could be in trouble. So the spy starts to leave. Blake follows after her. And when Kali asks what's going on, Sun's just like, look, you know, White Fang's bad. I'm bringing your daughter back. Everything's going to be fine. So Sun, once again, going after her to help Blake figure things out and, well, get his scroll back. Because that is kind of his life. Well, you know, smartphones, everyone's life is their phone. And we have gotten to the climax of the episode, so now we're going back down. We reconvene Team Ranger the following morning. And they're just about ready to get moving. But they awake to find a crow having a coughing fit. And we see that the poison that was in the stinger scratch is starting to affect his body. We know that Crow was indeed poisoned, and it is affecting his life. It's effectively hurting him. He is in life-threatening condition right now. We don't know to what extent, but we know that it's bad. Now, once again, a lot of people in the community instantly called out, well, Crow's dead. Crow's dead. We might as well, tombstone, ding, ding, ding. Here lies Crow 2014, 2016, whatever. We might as well just, bury him now. When it's like, no. Let's be logical about this. Okay, he was merely scratched by Tyrion's tail. Tyrion was fully ready to sting Ruby with the same exact tail. Same exact poison. And once again, Salem wanted Ruby alive. So, either the poison isn't as life-threatening as we thought, or it's treatable. The second, I think, is more than likely. We have to remember, there's a lot of faunus out there. There's a lot of deadly animals out there. You would think that they would have anti-venom and ways to heal poisoning like that. And so, the race to get to Haven is even more on. The race to get to Mistral. Mistral will have doctors. Mistral will have poison experts that can help heal Crow. But now it's simply a race against time. Before, Team Ranger could take their time, mosey about, do whatever they really wanted. But now, they have to get to Mistral before Crow gets over past the point of no return. Because then he can die. And dang it, Crow, no die. No die, Crow. We can't have you die yet. You have a lot more information to give us. So now, the remainder of the volume is a race against the clock for Team Ranger to get Crow to a healer so that he may be saved. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching this review. I know that, once again, it's late, but I'm getting these out to you as fast as possible. So, be sure to like and favorite if you've enjoyed. Subscribe, of course, if you feel inclined to. Check out social media pages, links to other videos down in the description. Be sure to check out my Patreon page if you want to support me monetarily that way. Big thanks to all my Patreon sponsors. They're up here on screen. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next review or the next video, whatever I'm doing. Be a good person, tip your wages, just keep moving forward, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you then. Yeah.